Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Tuesday talk. I have my friend Jessica who is joining me today. Okay, great. So Jessica, if you would please introduce yourself. So your name, your title, what that title means, how long you've been with Right at Home, and anything else you want to share about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So I'm Jessica Schultz. I am the Director of Franchise People Strategy. So I support our franchise offices with all of their recruitment and retention efforts. So we also support a lot of new owners who are coming in and getting acquainted with Right at Home and how to set up their ATS and what that looks like and getting a lot of caregivers in the pool. We work on a lot of strategy projects. We support our senior leadership council. There's a lot of initiatives that our team is responsible for. I've been in home care for a little over 6 years now, but I've been here at Right at Home for a little over 3. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just going to hop right into it. Just for the sake of time, we've got only 30 minutes, and this is something that you and I could probably talk about for hours because it is such an important part of a right at home business. As it's no secret, I like to say the caregivers are the heartbeat of any right at home business. So knowing that the audience of people that are watching this are people who are interested in joining the right at home system and becoming franchise owners, let's start with, in your words, how important is it that when we say caregiver recruitment and retention, how important is it to recruit caregivers to your right at home business, and how important is it to keep them as your caregivers? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it?
Yeah, I would say, well, it's 100% of your business. So a 10, definitely. So this role in recruitment is actually evergreen. So you will never stop recruiting. It is 100% going to be what your office will be doing constantly because in order for you to not only sustain your business, but to grow your business, you're going to need more caregivers along the way. So 100%, it is so important to continue to engage and try to recruit more caregivers in the pool. In terms of retention, that is also important because as we're bringing them in, we don't want them walking out the back door, right? So we want to keep them so that we can continue to grow the business by adding more.
Okay. So I actually read a thank you for that. That was perfect. I agree. It's a 10 out of 10 on how important it is. Caregiver recruitment and retention within your right at home business.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to really beginning when you're starting the right at home business from scratch, the first thing that you'll want to do as a right at home franchise owner is when it comes to the business and like your first hires, if you will.
Yeah.
People are sometimes confused. Like, do I get some clients first and then hire caregivers? Do I get some caregivers first and then I get some clients? So like, how does that work? Can you describe initially maybe just the process by which hiring those first few caregivers, in what order do things come in? Just start with the very basics. Pretend you are talking to someone who just purchased a right at home franchise and I'm just starting from scratch. What advice would you give me when it comes to starting your caregiver, pool, if you will?
No, that's a great question. We do get that a lot from our new owners coming in. So, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, right? Like what comes first. So it really should start with recruitment of caregivers because you really can't start a client until you have a caregiver, right? So you kind of have to have both, but we do recommend that you start to bring caregivers in and start to recruit, have some, caregivers that are, what we kind of call keep warm or on the back burner. And how you can do that is you can send them through training. You can get them acquainted with your office. They're going to start orientation. There's a lot of onboarding involved in getting a caregiver set up before they even go into their first shift. So getting that caregiver acquainted and feeling like they have a place of belonging is going to be really key. And then as you're doing that, you're trying to find clients, right? So that way, when that caregiver is ready and up and ready to go, then you have a client that you can send them to. So
okay.
caregiver recruitment is so critical with that process.
Okay. I'm going to back up just a little bit because the description of this Tuesday talk today is about caregiver recruitment and retention through best practices. So let's define what we mean by best practices, because once you join the Right at Home system, there are Right at Home standards, and then there's Right at Home best practices. And there's a very big difference between the two. I'll describe standards. So standards are the things that are part of your franchise agreement, really, that are required. It's a standard to have a clean and complete set of books. Like, that's a Right at Home standard. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we have a huge list of things that are best practices. And best practices, how I like to describe best practices it's a whole bunch of things that we have done here at Right at Home, that we have done, or our franchise owners have done, to help them in their business. So there's multiple best practices in various areas of your Right at Home business. We have a lot of best practices when it comes to caregivers, recruiting those caregivers and retaining those caregivers. So that's really what we're talking about today. So Jessica, what would you say, if you could? Let's just focus on recruiting caregivers for now, but kind of like the first half of this webinar. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to recruiting caregivers, can you name some of the most popular best practices, or maybe the best practices that our franchise owners who are absolutely thriving in their business, what's a common best practice that they have when it comes to recruiting caregivers?
Yeah, I would say probably, the sourcing piece and the recruitment. There's a lot to be done on the front end of that. And so mm-hmm. It's really learning how to build your marketing strategy and understanding what you're going after. And then coming up with your recruitment plan. So in order to understand what that marketing strategy is, you have to go out and look at what are your competitors doing and how are they marketing some of those jobs that you're also going to be marketing as well. And so what are they offering? What are some of those things? Setting up your job postings for success to make sure you're attracting some of the right candidates to come into the pool. That is going to be really key. And also just making sure your ATS is set up for success as well. I know that sometimes gets, it falls by the wayside a little bit because folks just worry about the posting, and it's like, well, there's a lot more involved in how they're coming to you. If there's a lot of extra steps or it's taking them a long time to come in, that can be an issue. So these are some of the big things that we talk about when owners come in and they're learning about this process. So that's kind of in a nutshell, the sourcing and recruitment process of the best practice.
Okay. And just in case our listeners aren't aware, when she says ATS, she means applicant tracking system. Yes. Can you describe to our listeners what an applicant tracking system is?
Yes. No, that's a great question. So I apologize. We use a lot of acronyms around here.
We
do. Yeah. An applicant tracking system is essentially a platform in which when a caregiver comes in to your pool, they are coming from different job boards. And so what an ATS will do essentially is we'll take that one job posting and it spreads it around to all of the job boards that are associated with your ATS. So Indeed, for example, is a really large job board, and we get most of our applicants coming through Indeed. But there are others like ZipRecruiter, MyCNA Jobs. There's a lot of other ways to recruit. So we don't want to be just in one job board. We want to be in several. And so what that ATS will do is not only spread that job, but then once those candidates come into you and you're able to take those candidates, you can move them through the process seamlessly, and that you can start to deliver messages to them. More automation is built out with your ATS. You can also pull reports within your ATS. So it's kind of like this system that's like a one-stop shop to bring that caregiver all the way from applying for that job and to the moment that they're hired with you. So it's a really cool tool, and we highly recommend that they use an ATS. So
okay, perfect. And actually, it is a Right at Home standard that you use, an applicant tracking system. Which applicant tracking system you use? We've certainly got ones that we recommend, ones that are very popular in the Right at Home system, but it is a standard to use an ATS. But we really do leave that up to you as to which one you would like to use. But love an applicant tracking system because it's really a one-stop shop. You don't have to go to several different places to check here and there and hey, any applicants here. It's all in one central place. Love it. And then there was a question that came in before I read this question, and I don't want to lose my train of thought. You mentioned job postings. So does a franchise owner, do they have to think of, what am I going to put in this job posting? What are the words that I use? And what am I going to say? And I'm going to say the wrong thing. Is it up to our franchise owners? Do they have to think of those things? Or is that a tool or a resource that we provide?
That is a resource that we provide, which is exciting. We have a lot of different ways that you can put that job posting out there. And we actually recommend 7 or 8 different job postings because, again, it's evergreen. You're always going to be recruiting with different titles and such. So what's really cool is our system actually has different demographics that you can also target and go after. So our marketing team is really great in providing some of those necessary tools. So if you live, like, let's say you're in a community that has, a military base, or you have a nursing hospital or something like that, these are different demographic people that you can target and go after and put some of those things in your job postings, which really can help you elevate your job and try to get more candidates into the pool. So yes, to answer your question, we do have some of these available and they can definitely use them.
Okay, perfect. And here's the question that came in from one of our listeners. It says, as a ride-at-home franchise owner, how do you stay up to date or informed about current or new best practices from corporate?
So new ones that are coming in, we always explain what we're doing through our Takeoff Tuesdays. So Takeoff Tuesday is a call. It's kind of like our town hall where a lot of our franchisees can come in and listen about what's new, what's coming. And so all of our best practices are introduced on Takeoff Tuesday. We also have a hub space in which that is where all of our communication kind of goes out. And so if there is something new coming, we usually try to announce it there. And then we have our weekly updates, which come out on Fridays. And so franchisees can get word that, okay, there's a new best practice coming and here's what it consists of. And typically what we'll do, which is really cool, is we'll bring in like a panel of franchisees who are maybe doing something around that best practice and that have been successful. And then they share out what their success has been along with metrics. So we try to back it up with some KPIs and really put that out there for you to be successful. So, and our team is always here, of course, for additional support.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And this is a question that I thought of before we hopped on the call together, Jessica. There was a press release that came out not too long ago about a newer partnership that Right at Home has with Caribou Care. Can you explain to our listeners what Caribou Care is and what role that plays in caregiver recognition?
Yeah, that's a great question. We absolutely adore Caribou Care. So this is one of our recent partners. I would say over the last year, we did a pilot last year. So we knew that we needed an additional platform, an additional tool to help get caregivers more engaged, right? So we know this is a lonely job. Caregivers are going from their home to the client's home, back home again. So how do we really get in front of them? How do we make this rewarding? Obviously, the job is, it is tough work, but how do we continue to do that? We knew we needed some additional assistance. And so with that, we looked for a tool. We piloted a couple different platforms, and by far, we had learned that Caribou was just above and beyond amazing to work with. So they have a great team. Their customer service is impeccable. And what this process is basically they will help award basically like a gamification process. So they will award caregiver points, and then caregivers can redeem those points for various gift cards and or add additional income onto their paycheck. So if they go above and beyond in terms of, with their client, if they get a kudos, or maybe they have perfect attendance and they're, you're monitoring it from, an attendance perspective, you can hand out gamification in terms of where they can redeem. And so what we've learned is really cool that they actually like the points better than the gift card directly. So it's kind of fun for them to gain points and then, turn those points into actual gift cards. So it's been fun and exciting to watch, and we are monitoring some of that success too in terms of metrics and KPIs. So
Okay, great. Thank you. And great segue into my next question, because people often ask, like, how do we know what's working and what's not? So how do we, if you can, describe either at the corporate level or at the franchise owner level, how does one measure caregiver recruitment success, caregiver retention success? How do we know what's working and what's not?
yeah, I think it's important that we're monitoring some of those metrics ongoing. We like to look at a 30-day retention. We're looking at some different metrics right now from a system perspective. We're trying to build out some more of that. But it's important to look at metrics from a hiring perspective, and our ATS does a really great job in that to understand, where are your sources coming in? Are you putting the right dollars on the right source in terms of hiring caregivers? Where is the success happening with certain job postings? All the things, right, that have to do with recruitment. Measuring the time, right? The time that it takes to bring a caregiver in. We know we lose more when we wait too long and not call them right away. So all of those things, time to fill, conversion rates, like all the things that we know are important to this process. If you're not measuring it, there's no way to improve, right? So it's really important that we take the time to measure. And within our best practices, each one, we spell out specific KPIs and metrics that they can use to help them measure their success, which is really
great. Cool. Great. And when you say, so do you meet with our franchise owners to review that with them, or is that something that they work very closely with their coach on? Who is the point person that our franchise owners have when it comes to measuring this caregiver recruitment and retention success, what's working, what's not?
Yeah, it's typically the business performance coach. And so they'll be meeting with them ongoing to talk about some things, but our team is happy and always excited to meet with franchisees who have questions or want to look at something further to keep track of or ask, what should I be measuring? We just implemented something new and how do I measure it? Again, our team is happy to meet with them and go through the process.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you for that. An FAQ, I'm just going to keep right going. I have a list of questions that I teed up in advance of our call, Jessica, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit. We don't have any questions on our message board right now from our audience, so I'm just going to keep going through my questions. Okay. When it comes to caregivers, and an FAQ that we often get is, so do you corporate train my caregivers? So I hire a caregiver and do you train them? Do you hire them? Do you recruit them? Do you train them? So who does what? Mm-hmm. Maybe describe, if you can, Right at Home University, or what is the mechanism by which our franchise owners train their caregivers? These are people that have never owned a home care business before, so it's a new franchise owner. It's no secret. They are going to be responsible for hiring these caregivers, but also training these caregivers. So maybe just describe what that process looks like. Obviously, we have to hire them as a caregiver, but then they have to be properly educated and trained. So maybe just kind of walk through that process and what that looks like.
Yeah, so that's a great question too. We also have a best practice on both orientation. How does that process work in training? So that usually is the first day for a caregiver to come in. We have a whole PowerPoint presentation that they can use. They can, obviously they can alter. And then we also have an onboarding best practice. So everything is kind of spelled out in terms of what it should look like and how much you should be engaging with that caregiver ongoing. Which is really cool. But back to your point about Right at Home University, we also partner with Activated Insights, who hosts all of our training for our caregivers, and you can assign training to them through the platform, and so that they can take some of those classes during that onboarding timeframe. So we've got a list also if they're wanting to expand or if they want to build their knowledge base. There is an opportunity. Another best practice that we created is focusing more on those specialized skills like Alzheimer's, palliative care, and some other areas if they want to, again, expand. So that's another program that we have that if you want your caregiver to have just a little bit more knowledge in those spaces, that they can do that as well. So very, very great programs and great best practices to back that up. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can you explain to our listeners what the Caregiver of the Year program is?
Yeah, this is one of the most exciting awards. Every year at Home Improvement during our conference, our annual conference, it's literally, there's not a dry eye in the house and people are standing, clapping. It's incredible. We do a program, a National Caregiver of the Year program. So actually the nominations just opened this week and they will be closing next month. So we usually keep nominations open for a month. We narrow that list down to 25 caregivers. Our senior leadership team will narrow that list down. And then once that list is drawn up, then we take it to an external committee, and then our external committee decides on our top 8 regional winners, and then they make a decision on their national winner. So here at the corporate office, we do not choose who those winners are, but we obviously use our franchisees and some external folks that are already in home care that kind of understand our business, and then the winner gets a nice check, $6,500 to be exact, and then a trip to where our home improvement conference is with a nice day package, wherever they want to go in town, and then obviously dinner with their team. There is a lot of perks in becoming the National Caregiver of the Year. They're put on a board here at our corporate team, and so we very much value our Caregiver of the Year, and we just love this program. So
thank you. Can you, for somebody who's listening who is thinking like, I want to be the absolute best when it comes to having an environment in my office, a great culture, where caregivers want to be employed, want to stay employed, with my office. Can you describe, just off of top of mind, a franchise owner that you can think of who does a really excellent job at that? So maybe just some of the qualities that they have, the things that they do, the environment in their office that they have, some of the things that they do at their office, because if you're listening to this and you're going through franchisee validation, so you talk to a lot of our existing right-at-home franchise owners, if you ask a franchise owner this question, what do you do to create an awesome culture in your office, or to recruit caregivers, or to retain caregivers? What are some of the things that you do? You're going to get different answers from every franchise owner, because every franchise owner has a different way of doing things. We certainly have recommendations and best practices that they can follow, but Jessica, with this being your bread and butter, can you describe a franchise owner who really thrives at this, so that our listeners can then maybe take some pieces of advice from you that they can incorporate into their right-at-home business when they become right-at-home franchisees?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say definitely Paul Blum is one of our big owners in this space. Consistently wins caregiver awards year after year, even client awards, because as we know, if we're amazing with our caregivers, they're likely going to be amazing with your clients. So it's just kind of the rule of thumb. But Paul Blum definitely is at the top of mind. He's been one of our top 10 offices in terms of OSAT scores, our caregiver surveys, ENPS scores, if they're going to refer right at home in the future, as well as retention rates. I mean, the best. And so what happens in this office is definitely very focused on caregiver experience. I mean, I would say that's probably their number one thing that they do. They have a team of office staff that has been with their office over 20 years. So it's just incredible that they've built those connections. They've built those relationships. They really feel like they have a heart to care, and you can really see it in everything that they do. I mean, they're constantly creating like contests with their caregivers, constantly setting up amazing, they do caregiver meetings, and then they kind of do their own like Caregiver of the Year, and then they send them to the to this theater to go watch a play, and then it's just amazing. All the things that they're doing for caregivers constantly. He is definitely a standout, and just constantly keeping the caregiver in mind first and foremost. So.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we just have a few minutes left. I lied. There is a question that came in as you were answering that last question. I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
And then we'll get to wrapping things up here with just a few moments left. It says, is there a target demographic or demographics to consider when hiring caregivers?
So that is, I would say the target demographic is going to be anyone who is looking for a job, right? This is an entry level job. It all will depend too on your community. Like, where are a lot of these folks coming from? What we see happen is this person is really sometimes, the stay-at-home mom who's just looking to get more, wanting to get in the community, volunteer. This is your, retiree who's not yet ready to fully retire. This is the people who want to pick up a part-time job and help out their neighbor. Like, these folks are coming from all walks of life. But I would say in terms of targeting one demographic, it really is dependent upon in your community. What are you seeing, military, like I mentioned earlier. So it just kind of depends, but they're everywhere,
Yes.
So.
Yep. And I can answer that in a similar yet different way. There isn't a specific demographic that's like, yes, this is the type of person that you're looking for. It's going to depend on your territory, on your market, where you are, specifically the job seekers in that specific territory. Do they meet a specific demographic? But as far as us having a specific type of person that we are targeting as a caregiver, we have hired caregivers that are 18 years old, and we've hired caregivers that are in their 90s. So it's every different walk of life, somebody who's entry level position and somebody that's been retired for 30 years. So it's all walks of life. But in the end, even a caregiver who has been, entry level position, I want to say with minimal experience has been up there as a caregiver of the year. And we've actually had caregivers of the year that have been older than 90 years old. I want to say 1 year our caregiver of the year was 90 years old, or even older than 90. But anyway, every walk of life we have as far as caregivers. So don't specifically target a specific demographic when it comes to hiring caregivers, because they come from all over the place. Okay. All right. So we only have 1 minute left. Jessica, is there anything that we did not talk about over the last 30 minutes that you want to address, or a piece of advice that you want to give to somebody who is watching this, knowing that they're thinking about becoming a right-at-home franchise owner, either at the beginning stages of the education process? I know we have some listeners right now that are going to be attending our next Discovery Day. So any piece of advice that you can offer when it comes to caregiver recruitment and retention and those best practices in the event that they become a right-at-home franchisee?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say, people really get inspired by your story. And so when you come in to Right at Home, just be prepared to talk to caregivers, talk to your staff, your office staff about, why you're interested in home care and what is so inspiring for you, and what connected you to this space. And so with that, I think it really showcases the kind of person you are and wanting to help these people, either find a job or help people stay at home longer. And so I just encourage you to get inspired and be ready to tell them your story. So. Okay.
And I lied at Jessica. A really wonderful question came into the message board, the question board, before we part ways. And I do want to ask it to you because it's a frequently asked question that we get. So real quick, it says, in general, what is the average tenure of a caregiver?
The average, that kind of varies, obviously, by office. Right now, I would say it's probably about right around that 6 month mark is usually what we see. So I mean, if you can get a caregiver for a year, that's phenomenal, and that's
Yeah.
where we try to really target some of those nursing students who need those contact hours, or folks that
Yeah.
really want to just work long term for your business. So yeah, I would say it's very important, recruitment and trying to keep them longer. So
That's right. And thank you for that answer. And that should be kind of like tacked onto what you said earlier. Caregiver recruitment and retention is evergreen. You're going
yeah,
to be constantly hiring caregivers. You're going to be constantly recruiting. And then obviously the retention part is so important. Once you have hired them, you want to retain them and keep them. So not surprising that the average tenure would be around 6 months. But I would also answer that it varies. It depends would be the
yeah,
answer. I know some caregivers that have been caregivers with our franchise owners for years, and others that go through quite a few caregivers and recycle about every 6 months. But either way, I mean, you're going to have a pool of caregivers that you can refer to fill those shifts, and you're going to be constantly recruiting, as you said earlier. So that makes complete sense to me. So Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We've done this before, always really wonderful conversations with you, very relevant, as the caregivers are the heartbeat of our right and home businesses. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I know that our listeners do as well. So thank you.
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yes, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.